Hello everyone, Turner Burner here with another video for you guys. This is one that I've been put off long enough, and I'm excited to finally get into it. It's the solo I would consider my greatest achievement. It is Paduk gameplay on the end. I'm not sure, how many guys know about this, but it actually started as a challenge from a subscriber that commented on another video. They said, do the end with one of the new characters. And so basically they meant do the end solo with either Paduk, who was a brand new character, or one of the Horde characters. So the only legitimate option of the Horde characters was Kate, but I couldn't figure out a strategy for Kate at that time. So I tried Paduk, and then I realized that it was definitely going to be doable with Paduk. So it took a long time to get to this, to finishing it, but I am glad I finally did. And if you guys want to, just for fun, you guys can guess in the comments section how long it took me, and then I'll let you guys know if you're right or not. How many days did it take me to complete Paduk on the end? So yeah, if you want to put that down below for fun, I'll let you know if you're right or if you're off or whatever, just for fun. But let's get right into it. So with the end, unlike other solos I've done, this is going to be hard to just watch and duplicate, because different situations on maps that have a high volume of enemies coming at certain times, you'll have to handle them differently. So what happens in this game isn't 100% guaranteed to happen in your game. Sometimes, a Multra Scion, for instance, is more aggressive than another time, or an elite drone takes one cover over another. So a lot of these dynamics will be more situational, but there are concepts that you can take for your solo and team runs as Paduk solo, or as Paduk as a team player. There's a lot of different concepts you can use going forward to help your team win and help your team survive. What the usefulness of Paduk is, and why he's probably either the best or second best character in my opinion, he can get your teammates out of dire situations. He has a phase card that puts enemies in fear for 11 seconds. He has a terror card that I'm using both of them. He has a terror card that puts enemies in fear for 15 seconds. This allows if you're under duress, your teammates to survive situations where they're getting ambushed. So, but in this gameplay, I run concussive, stun, which allows me to stun enemies with Bolt Talk if it's a headshot hit. Phase, what is it? I forget the name of the one right now. Menace, and Terror, and Execution Shield. Menace allows me to get my ultimate every 3 or 4 executions. Phase allows me to execute enemies for every execution, nearby enemies in fear. So basically the cards support just constantly putting enemies in a cycle of fear. And that's what you'll see here in this video. So no more delaying. Let's get right into it. So with in the end, when you're going to solo it, depending on the character, it's only been done by 4 different characters to date. In this room, you got Hammerburst, Lancer, and Gnasher. So Lancer is what makes this all possible. Without the Lancer, I don't think it's feasible. But what you want to do is you want to get the Gnasher first, load up the Gnasher, and then get the Lancer. One of the things that happens if you do end up trying this, one of the things that happens is if you're trying to chainsaw something, because it's the same button, whether it's reloading or trying to chainsaw, it's a matter of pressing or holding. Because it's the same button, which is a terrible idea by the Coalition, you run into problems such as if you are stopped from chainsawing, you end up reloading your gun. And the reload is not fast, so if you have ammo, it'll probably, and you have like a chainsaw flinch or whatever that causes you to reload, you'll probably die. And after that happened a few times on this map, I decided I just don't want any Lancer ammo. I just won't shoot any juvies with Lancer. I'll just get rid of it altogether. So that actually allowed me to kind of beat the system in a way, and defeat mechanics that worked against you as far as that's in this game. But ultimately, you want to get all the Gnasher ammo, then get the Lancer. The only purpose of the Gnasher ammo is for you to shoot Mulcher Scions that are in fear that turn around. The Mulcher Scions, and you could win this with the Salvo Scion spawn, it's just a lot harder, but the Mulcher Scion spawn, when they're in fear, they turn around, but they have shields, so that the only way to really kill Mulcher Scions is if they're in fear from phase or if they're in fear from terror. So you either have 11 seconds or 15 seconds. So it's not really feasible as a non-melee character to kill the Scions in any other way once they have their shields up. So you'll see that here in a second, where that's how I used to kill both Mulcher Scions. The Gnasher serves no other purpose, so don't waste the Gnasher ammo. So the first thing is always to pull that Venom fan. Even when the Venom detonates, it'll be slightly outside the initial door, but that's not really a concern of ours as Paduk. The only room we need, after wasting all of our Lancer bullets, because we don't want any ammo in our Lancer, because we're only going to chainsaw, the only thing we need is this last room and to kill everything in this last room. So when you're dealing with this first part, being in this room triggers the enemies, right? So, but there's basically enemies in this last room, and there's enemies that spawn at the LZ. I'll let you know how to trigger the ones at the LZ here in a second, but being in this room will trigger the first set of enemies, which is like, Juvies, a Sire, and a couple of Grenadiers. And you're going to wait in this room until you see them. There was attempts where I would come in this room and then fall back, and they never came. Or they came like super late. So as soon as you see the Juvies, you can fall back to where you need to go. So now that the Juvies are here, I can go back whenever. So falling all the way back, so there's this little post right to my left right there. So there's that little post area where it slopes down or whatever. When you are doing the end, here's how the spawn works, right? So I'll go back a little bit. So I'll show you here in a second. So right now I'm just waiting for the Juvies to come. So there's two positionings in the end that I noticed from my Paduk attempts, right? You see this first one? This first post right in front of me, if I were to hover behind that position, chainsawing stuff, because it is good cover, if I were to stay in that position, I would only trigger Grenadiers and Sires, and then once I kill all of those, then I trigger the enemies from the LZ and the Elite Drones and the Mulcher Scions. I didn't like this strategy because it allowed me to deal with the harder enemies later as opposed to first. So what I do is and these are really only from trial and error. It's not like I've read this somewhere. So the post right there to my left, I hover behind that post, and that pulls the enemies from the LZ, but does not pull the easier enemies until much later. So it's just an order of operations thing, really, where I choose to deal with the Elite Drones first, and then, or Elite Drones and Mulcher Scions, as opposed to the Grenadiers and Sires. The attempts I did lose, which was a lot, it was not because of a Juvie, a Sire, or a Grenadier. It was because of Elite Drones and Mulcher Scions. So those are the ones you want to eliminate first. So I stay back here because as long as I'm behind that post, I'm triggering the enemies from the LZ, which is an assortment of elite drones and Mulcher Scions. I forget the amount of elite drones, but it's 2 Mulcher Scions. So right now I'm just, chainsawing the juvies, gaining stem, using an execution shield, and putting nearby enemies in fear. And it makes for really great defense. So I execute that grenadier, puts that grenadier in fear. Execute this grenadier, and it puts that sire that's coming up in fear. So sires move really fast while they're in fear. It's kind of annoying, but at least you can chainsaw them. So remember, I was telling you about this post. So I stay behind this post. This is the area I want to be. So if I was at the post near the door opening, right in front of me, it would trigger the sires and grenadiers and more juvies. But this post pulls the Mulcher Scions, well, at least at one at a time. It pulls the Mulcher Scion and the elite drones from the LZ. So there's just a juvie from before that was in fear that must have ran away. Same thing with this grenadier, I'm almost positive. What I do with this grenadier, because based off of timing, I know, and then there's the elite drone. The first elite drone shows me the Mulcher Scions coming, okay? The grenadier, I don't want to just get overzealous and put him in fear and execute him while, and then that's it. So what I do with this grenadier, and mind you, every situation on how you handle this will be very, very different. But for this situation, I want to use that grenadier to put fear on the Mulcher Scion. And I have plenty of Boltok ammo. So what I do is I keep stunning the grenadier, and once I use the Mulcher Scion, once I see the Mulcher Scion, I execute him, right? Which allows me to use my skill cards to put the Mulcher Scion in fear instead of my ultimate. And then I can use my ultimate if, for some reason there's nearby enemies that aren't in fear, which you'll see in a second. So my plan is basically to keep stunning that grenadier as he gets closer to me. And then once the Mulcher Scion gets close to it, which he's here, I will execute that grenadier. I don't want to do it now because I want to definitely put that Mulcher Scion in fear. So I just keep stunning him over and over again until I think the Mulcher Scion is close enough. And then I execute, and then I go after the Mulcher Scion. Me going after the grenadier is a mistake. I should have immediately went after the Mulcher Scion. I use my ult because the elite drones nearby weren't in fear. So I use my ult to protect myself, and that elite drone's still not in fear, but luckily I have Nasher. And then also Paduk's passive allows him to put double the damage for 2 enemies in fear. So that allows me to kill things faster when, whether it's through my ultimate fear or phase fear. Sorry, minor hiccup. So yeah, double the damage for the passive, which allows me to put the Mulcher Scion, which allows me to kill the Mulcher Scion faster. So if you remember, I don't know how many of you have watched this video, but the fear or nah video, a Mulcher Scion made the LZ, and he was in fear a bunch of times, but there was a lot of other enemies nearby, and I had to deal with them than deal with the Mulcher Scion. If I had Nasher, I'd have been able to kill the Mulcher Scion faster, and that would have been a much better victory. But you live and learn. I didn't have Nasher, I only had my Lancer. But regardless, I should have won that game, but that's beside the point. But the Nasher allows me to kill the Scions faster than just meleeing. So now I got elite drones, and also have to be mindful that another Mulcher Scion is coming, so I got to be mindful of that. So elite drones like to camp, so the further I go back, the more they're going to push towards me. So once they reach a cover that they're satisfied with, I'm going to mantle kick. Mantle kicking seems to work better than trying to triple combo an elite drone, so that's what I try to do. And you also have to be careful about elite drones in fear. They can still kill you if you get into a chainsaw duel. So right now I just do over and over, just, execute and, recharge my ult and go from there. So right now I am just waiting back here to see how many more enemies are going to be coming, because I think there's going to be more elite drones. So there's a grenadier and an elite drone. So the elite drone is the game ender, not the grenadier. So I want to mantle kick the elite drone, execute, put the grenadier in fear, and then get the grenadier. So it's always about priorities when it comes down to these situations. What enemy is more likely to end the game, an elite drone or a grenadier? And you know from your own experience what that is. So because I was in the back so long, it's going to trigger the ultrasound from the LZ, but now this position is going to trigger the sires, juvies, and more grenadiers, whatever's remaining. So here's the sire. I use the sire, chainsaw him, which puts the ultrasound in fear. It's always more ideal to use fear from another enemy via phase and use my ultimate, if I need to after that, but it's less ideal to, how to explain this? You want to use your ultimate when it comes down to ultrasound specifically, you want to use your ultimate as like a backup. So like if phase puts the nearby enemies in fear, but there may be 2 or 3 juvies or elite drones that are not in fear. So you want to use phase to put the ultrasound in fear, but then your ultimate to put everything else in fear after you're working on killing the ultrasound. So again, it's just situational. You'll just have to fight them as they come. So this next segment, the best way I can describe this is you're just going to chainsaw everything you see. I mean, there's really not much else I can say. Just do movements here and there. Just be mindful that grenadiers can come up from one side alongside elite drones. You can Boltok stun them and execute, or you can just chainsaw the grenadiers. It's going to be sires and juvies. But they're really not a problem, because once you start chainsawing at them, they will start backpedaling away from you. So it kind of works as good defense. So there's a juvie, just chainsaw. So you just kind of be mindful where all your enemies are. So sires are starting to come, or sire. Yeah, these enemies are really no big deal. The grenadier can be tough if you're not paying attention. Just execute him, ultimates charge, and I get in a little dicey situation where I do a chainsaw flinch right there, and I pop my ult as an emergency. But since there's so many juvies, I'm able to just keep chainsawing them, and I have my ult charged almost immediately. There it goes right there. So it's 4 chainsaws. And it charges again. Chainsawing that juvie put that ultrasound in fear. But that ultrasound, so there's 4 ultrasounds in this whole game before the doors start closing, or before you close the doors. There's ultrasounds that are in the game, in the last room before the LZ, and then there's 2 ultrasounds that spawn at the LZ. So just keep in mind. So this ultrasound's not from the LZ. He was already in the game when the game started. So basically, I'm just going to wait for a moment to loop all the way around once the ultrasounds are no longer in fear and they're pulled back. So I'm going to loop all the way around, and since I have stem, I have a little bit of defense against this venom. Not much, though. And then at the last second, once I hop down this little barrier type deal, this little lift, I'm going to put the elite drones in fear. So if you don't hop down, then pop your ultimate. Those elite drones are so fast when your ultimate is, when you pop your ultimate. You probably can't catch up to them. If I'm being totally honest, I've never caught up to them. So I want to pop my ultimate and then run ahead of them to beat them to the LZ. For some reason, the way the game is designed, when you're dealing with near the LZ, the enemies, well, if you're dealing with 1-act hives, the enemies run towards the LZ. If it's 2-act hives, before the safe room, they kind of just move really slow. So it's more fair before the safe room than it is near the LZ. Near the LZ, they just bolt towards the LZ. It's kind of frustrating because it's not really all that helpful if you are at the LZ and you put enemies in fear and they're running towards you. So you have to deal with all of them. But going against you still, when you're doing these solo runs, you have to defeat game mechanics, unfortunately. So I mean, it is what it is. So, but so I pop my ultimate and run ahead of the drones. That way I can beat them to the punch. So basically my goal here is to execute every single drone. I try to chainsaw from the back for elites because they're dangerous otherwise. Execute every single drone here, and once my ult is charged, then I'm going to pull the door. I only chainsaw these drones because they put their similar to the how Jack has a zapper and he zaps enemies. That's what these enemies look like when they're in fear. And when they do that little back break, that's when I try to chainsaw them because it's really not safe otherwise. I've died a few times with elite drones in fear in chainsaw duels. But one also downside of elite drones is if you try to triple combo them in fear, it's not unusual for them to do a side roll, and you kind of lose momentum there as well. But again, you just kind of have to defeat situations as they come up. So now that I have my ultimate ready, I am ready to pull the lever. And one thing you want to do in this situation, that juvie's not going to harm us. He's in fear, and it is a juvie. At the first sign of trouble, you're going to pop your ultimate, but not any sooner. So that elite drone's there, starting to end the game. And at this point, you're just going to chainsaw, which is the equivalent of flashing the door because of the fact that you're constantly putting enemies at the door in fear. And this may look like it's about killing the juvies, but the main focus is not letting a mulcher sound out here because we want to win the game here. So just keep chainsawing the juvies, keep putting enemies in fear. And this is what I was talking about. So if let me go back a little bit. So I'm just putting enemies in fear over and over again. So they're constantly in 11 seconds of fear. It doesn't stack. So I should just triple combo the elite drone there. I had to use my ult just to get out of losing a chainsaw dude, but it all works. It all worked out in the end. So I constantly just put these enemies in fear. I'm not sure how long these guys were in fear, but I just chainsaw him immediately as soon as I see them. And it's just a bunch of juvies, so that's pretty much it. So there's really not much to this last two part in killing juvies in fear. But that is it. That is Paduk on the end. That's something I consider my greatest achievement to date. Very, very happy to get this done, and I enjoyed getting it done. It was a grind, but it had to be done. Well, because I like the challenge. It didn't have to be done. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video and enjoyed the original video. Stay tuned for next solo run well, you'll just have to see. I don't know what the next solo run is. But hope you enjoyed this video, guys, and this tutorial. If you have any questions on how you can do this yourself, just let me know. But one of the main things is you need execution shield level 6. If it's level 5 or anything else, it's impossible because you need 100% defense while you're executing enemies. And that's the only level that'll do that. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Stay tuned for the next video. You guys have a good one.